Why, please, Kukui is the best, at least best Catholic soloist I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, welcome. Good to see you guys.
It's great to see you too, Bernardino.
Yeah,
back
man.
in the chair.
Yeah, man.
You know.
Yeah, man.
Like you said, there's a lot to talk about.
Too much. And there's too little time. So let's get straight into it.
Oh, yes, the Daily Graphic. Ghana mourns. Nation pays last respects to Rawlings. And pictured there, you see Dr. Zaneto Ajiman Rawlings, Nana Konedo Ajiman Rawlings, and Kimathi Rawlings. Okay. Election petition. EC and Akufo-Addo file witness statements. Also, curbing COVID-19. 1/3 of MPs sit in chamber for proceedings.
The Ghanaian Times also has its take on Rawlings. Says Rawlings begins journey home. Final funeral rites commence, and there's a picture of Zaneto and Kimathi Rawlings consoling their mother, Nana Konedo Ajiman Rawlings. Ghana pledges $50 million to support ECOWAS security operations. McMenu tags Mohammed's petition conjecture and adopts hydrogen peroxide to augment COVID-19 treatment regimen.
Again?
That's according to Professor Aite.
Okay, Daily Guide. EC and Nana ready to tango with Mahama, and they want petition dismissed. Also, virtual sittings for MPs. Rawlings' funeral underway. I don't fear vetting, says Abu Jinapo. And 2 grabbed with 152 ECG meters.
Wow.
The finder says GRA bags 45.3 billion CDs against 42.7 billion CD target. Bipartisan consensus on government funding of tertiary education critical. Rawlings' legacy should inspire all to value probity and accountability. That's according to Archbishop Palmer Buckle. COVID-19 shift system begins in some central region schools today. EC denies vote padding allegation in election petition case, and FWSC urges universities of Ghana senior staff associations to call off strike.
All right, the Daily Statesman. Let's embrace COVID-19 lessons, Akufo-Addo urges African leaders. Abu Jinapo set to inspire the youth as youngest minister. He's only 37 years old. Yeah. Mahama's petition is a waste of time. EC and Akufo-Addo praise Supreme Court to dismiss case.
The Chronicle says chief alleged protection of illegal miners in Amansie. Chief of Army Staff goes to war, in quotes, holds emergency deba with troops in Kumasi. Lawyer Pencil sues Midland Savings and Loans receiver Eric Nananipa for libel. And soldiers' bullet hospitalizes 17-year-old boy. Plus, Assembly member demands 20 Ghana cedis from COVID-19 trust fund beneficiaries.
All right, the Herald. Akufo-Addo imposes scandal-laden ministers on NPP, vetting to expose many of them. Do you want to see some of the scandal-laden MPs? Keno Foriata, Ursula Usu, Hawa Kumson, Peter Ameu, Adwasafo, Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu, and Godfred Dami. These people.
The whole cabinet.
This is the Herald. This is their front page. Ghana Army bosses face-saving attempt over Galamsey activities collapse. Enigmatic J.J. Rawlings starts final journey today. Yeah.
The New Crusading Guy says Ghana's first COVID vaccine rollout. Health workers, security personnel, others targeted. Abu Jinapo comes with fire. He's the youngest minister nominee in Nanado's government. Kweku Ofori-Asiama is best minister in Akufo-Addo's government. That's according to a report by the FAKS. Honorable Seth Odrobuedu saluted for recognizing Nananom. Electrochem will undertake mining activities at Songo. And it says, herdsman abducted in armed attack at Miocho.
All right, the Business and Financial Times. Handicraft sector shows no sign of recovery. Players call for speedy implementation of NEDS. Government to use COVID-19 cash to set up development bank, reserve freight forwarding and clearing business for locals. Okay. Those are the front page stories on Business and Financial Times.
The Ghanaian Observer quickly says, 2020 election petition. My lords, Mohammed's claims largely conjecture. Akufo-Addo star witness tells Supreme Court. War against COVID-19. Group hails Akufo-Addo for retaining health minister. JJ's 4-day state funeral begins. Abu Jinapo is the youngest minister designate, and Akufo-Addo rallies ECOWAS leaders against terrorist activities in sub-region.
I'm going to give you headlines from online that you haven't read already. So, for example, CitiNewsroom.com, couple of unique stories. Parliament to debate Ayariga's motion for suspension of tertiary fees today. It's the one I'm keeping an eye on. There's a story hidden somewhere on the website, and it's basically saying Ghana must prepare for possible earthquake strike. This is an analyst. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. That's on citinewsroom.com. Ghana must prepare for a possible earthquake soon. Now, if you go to Citi Business News, provide small cocoa processors with sustained financial support. This is banks are being urged. And Goldfields appoints a new CEO designate. And then GRA exceeds 2020 revenue target by 2.6 billion cedis. Can you imagine? With all the COVID concerns, they exceeded their revenue target by almost 3 billion cedis. That's GRA. Now, if you go to my journal online, couple of stories. US-based Ghanaian couple charged with fraud. I don't even know how people do these things. They disgrace us here and they go and disgrace us there too. And then so that's the main story there, apart from the requiem mass held in honor of Rawlings. Now, if you go to Star, they are leading with, of course, dismiss Mohammed's motion. But a couple of stories. A1 bread begins operations in America. I don't know why that's a leak story. Possibly a big issue there. Then Larry King dies at 87 after battling COVID. That's on multiple websites. Now, internationally, guess which 2 African countries have started administering the COVID vaccine?
South Africa?
No, I'll give you my cocoa for free if you can get it right. Now, funny thing, then the website's a South African website, but it's not a South African country.
It's not South Africa.
So the Mail and Guardian, which calls it South Africa's best read, is leading with Egypt, Seychelles, get first jabs. So according to the story, the 2 countries have rolled out China's Sinopharm vaccine. So they're waiting to see how that pans out. And then in East Africa, the lead story, Africa hopeful of early gains from Biden's first days in the Oval Office. So I think of yourself. Anyway, let's start with you.
All right, the Daily Graphic. Ghana mourns. Nation pays last respects to Rawlings. It's all about former President Rawlings from today till Wednesday. Ghana plunges into full-scale mourning from today as its citizens and mourners from the rest of the world begin paying their last respects to the late former President Jerry John Rawlings, 73, in a state funeral which will last until Wednesday, January 27th. The body of the former president is to be laid in state at the Accra International Conference Center from this morning for mourners to file past. The mood of the nation, especially in the capital, Accra, where the funeral is taking place, is nothing but somber. Today's filing past is reserved for heads of the security agencies, leaders of political parties, and the public. Tomorrow, the filing past will start with President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia, former heads of state, as well as heads of constitutional bodies. Also, Speaker of Parliament Alban Kingsford Sumana Bagbin will be there tomorrow. The Chief Justice, Justices of the Supreme Court, former Speakers of Parliament, etc. So
the big men are going tomorrow.
The big men are going tomorrow. So
we are going when? Today?
General public today.
General public, we can go, yeah.
Okay. The common floor members.
Please, if you're going, wear your mask.
Then on Wednesday, there's a huge one at the Black Star Square.
Huge.
Now, Nathan, there are a couple of angles to this. So, for example, if you go to citinewsroom.com, there's a huge one. Bring Rawlings' body home about that petition that's going to run for a while until we know his final resting place. Story says that the people of Anglo have petitioned Togbi Agbeshi Awusu II, the Abadada of Anglo, to demand the body of former President Rawlings be brought home for burial. They said the longest serving president and properly installed chief of Anglo consciously remained and died at Anglo and must be buried according to Anglo custom, which meant his body must be conveyed and buried in his ancestral home. And it was a joint petition authored by the 3 wings of the Anglo states, their military groups and the Anglo citizenry, and presented by the regent Togbi Tamaklo. I'm sure you have some insight into this. No, not into this specific issue, but the general issue.
The general issue, yes. The general issue, yes.
If you go to pages 16 and 17 of the Ghanaian Times, that's the center spread. They talk about the requiem mass that happened yesterday, and they quote portions of the sermon preached by Archbishop Palmer Bako, the most reverend, and they also have very interesting pictures from the event. Plus, they give details of how the Accra International Conference Center has been prepped
for today and tomorrow.
Now, it says that the Conference Center and the walls of the State House have been given a facelift. Works on the edifices, which commenced last Thursday, was at the completion stage when Ghanaian Times visited yesterday. Now, the Conference Center has been decorated with images of the former president, and the foyer of the AICC, where the remains will be lying in state, has also been decorated with black curtains. It goes on to provide details as to who's going when, at what time, to go and view the body and all of that. Now, it says on Wednesday, there'll be a funeral service with full military honors at the Independence Square to be led by the military, after which the body will be interred at the new military cemetery at Burma Camp.
So apparently, the Latin root for the word requiem is a missa pro defunctis or missa defunctorum. Those who are interested in Latin. Yesterday, there was a bit of domino Latin things. And Sixtus Don Ulo. Man, Charlie, you know what a missile is?
Yes.
No, Nathan doesn't. A cracker boy. Anyway, what else is big?
What else is big? Well, the president has been speaking to ECOWAS members. So the chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has asked member states not to be despaired in the face of the devastating effect of the coronavirus disease, COVID-19 pandemic on the continent. Rather, he said, they must learn lessons from such calamities by becoming self-reliant and also strengthening their bonds of unity and solidarity to battle the virus. Quote, the COVID-19 has provided us with the avenue to be self-reliant, and it is also a clarion call for us to remain faithful to the main objective of ECOWAS, which is to promote cooperation and integration for the well-being of our citizens. He was addressing the 58th Ordinary Session of ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government last Saturday via video conference from the Jubilee House.
There's a story in Parliament I thought people would be interested in.
Oh, yeah.
Parliament to debate Ayariga's motion for suspension of tertiary fees today. So Parliament will debate a motion pushing for the government to absorb fees of students in public tertiary institutions. I thought you had private, but that's where the problem is. Now, the private members bill was advanced by the Boku Central MP, who argues that this move is necessary to cushion parents against the impact of COVID-19. Now, the last time this came up, January 21, the Speaker, Abang Babin, called on the leadership of the House to help streamline the motion. Now, the motion seeks to get the President to suspend the payment of fees in public tertiary education institutions for a year due to the impact of COVID-19. And the debate has been moved to today. Disagreements over procedures and the wording of the motion, however, stalled the debate for two things. So, for two sittings. It's going to be very interesting how this pans out. I hope they just keep it until my kids get to university. Because my people, they are early.
That's a long time.
Charlie, imagine, in how many years will my kids be in university? To also benefit from the free something.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
The Daily Guide, the EC and Nana ready to tango with Mahama. Okay, remember, there's still a court case going on. President Akufo-Addo and the Electoral Commission have taken their next legal steps in battling former President John Mahama's petition challenging the results of the December 7, 2020 presidential election. The two respondents have filed their respective witness statements as ordered by the Supreme Court on January 19th, 2021. Although the former president failed to meet the deadline of noon on January 21st, the respondents had nonetheless gone ahead to file their statements, indicating how quickly they wanted the case disposed of, according to the dictates of CI 99. Both the president and the EC filed their respective written submissions to their preliminary legal objections to the petition, urging the court to dismiss the action of the former president. And remember, Mr. Mahama is before the Supreme Court challenging the results of the 2020 presidential election.
Well, if you go to page 3 of the Ghanaian Times, they provide some more specifics, or they zone in solely on Mark Menu's case or the president's response. Now, the president and Mrs. Jane Adukwe Mensah, chairperson of the EC, that's why they filed their respective witness statements in the ongoing 2020 election petition before the Supreme Court. The president gave the power of attorney to his campaign manager, Mr. Peter Makmenu, to testify as a witness in the case. And in the statement, Mr. Makmenu argued that the case of the petitioner, former President John Mahama, was largely conjectural and born out of the imagination of the petitioner. According to him, the material facts pleaded by Mr. Mahama do not support the reliefs being sought by the petitioner.
Now, I wanted to give you a quick angle to a story that you expressed surprise about. Ghana must prepare for possible earthquake strike. This is on citinewsroom.com. It says Ghana must position itself through enforcement of its own codes and standards to deal with any destructive earthquake strike in the future in order not to be taken by surprise. Now, you know Accra is on a fault line and there's regular seismic activity in the country.
Remember last year, some people felt the shaking.
Yeah, the combined effect of rapid development, industrialization, building of houses and roads, vehicular movement, and even fufu pounding, among others, is leading to the grounds beneath us moving very rapidly.
No, fufu pounding.
Imagine like on the day before Christmas, the number of families in Accra pounding fufu at the same time. Now, this has the potential of triggering massive earthquakes, which can be devastating if the quality of our buildings are not checked to make them earthquake resilient. Now, an associate of Max Consolidated Lawyers and Architects and also former head of Seismology and Earthquake Engineering Division of the Ghana Geological Survey Authority, Dr. Sylvanos Tetiahulu, said earthquakes in themselves don't kill, but weak structural elements which cannot withstand the strength of the vigorous shaking, can lead to death. This is especially so when they disintegrate and fall on people during the course of a tremor or heavy shaking. So please, let's build properly. And the fufu is getting too much. The fufu, no.
Well, if you go to page 4 of the Finder, some educational stories. First, one that is related to COVID. Shift system begins in some central region schools today.
All right.
Now, some public schools in the Brema and Sikuma district of the central region are beginning the shift system today to avoid congestion in the various classrooms while observing all COVID-19 protocols. The schools with a minimum class of 80 students
Are you serious?
are determined to run shifts. To
8-0.
Yes.
Wow.
They are determined to run shifts to prevent further spread of the virus. It was noted that more needed to be done for schools in rural communities to practice social distancing.
Wow.
So the story goes on to provide some details. The other one has to do with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and it is urging the Senior Staff Association of Universities of Ghana to call off its indefinite industrial strike. The association, in a press statement, had announced its intention to embark on a strike action starting January 21 to back its demands for the National Labour Commission to resolve some issues with the conditions of service by the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission in a letter dated January 22, signed by its Chief Executive, Dr. Edward Kwapon, and addressed to the National Chairman of the association, said they should call off the strike and meet with the commission as soon as possible sometime.
Well, because of that, you heard on the news this morning as well that one of the business school at UCC has also closed down because of the strike action. Now, something that fascinates me, GRA said they've exceeded their target. I've always had the surprise. I mean, Citi Business News is leading with that story, says GRA exceeds 2020 revenue target by 2.6 billion cedis. Now, new data released by the Ghana Revenue Authority shows that it has exceeded its 42.7 billion CD tax revenue target for last year by over 2.6 billion cedis. This follows a revision of the earlier target of 42.7 from 47.25 due to the impact of COVID. So what's the point? You reduce the thing from 47 to 42 and then you say you've exceeded the new one by 2. So what about the original 47 because of COVID? Anyway, the authority collected 45.3 billion for the year under review as against a target of 42.7, representing 6% above the target and a 3.3% year-on-year over the same period. Well, they should use the excess to pay our school fees then, since you've exceeded your target.
You see you. Bernard. Okay, there's a couple of interesting stories.
Vetting stories and stuff like that.
There are vetting stories. There are vetting to expose many of them. The Herald calls them scandal-laden ministers.
Well, Citi News' version is that Hawa Kumsin and Slawusu may have trouble with vetting, according to Franklin Kujo on the big issue. I'm sure they've listed a few others who may have some issues.
They have. They've listed John Peter Amewu. They've listed Godfred Dame. They've listed Mavis Hawa Kumsin, Keno Foriata, Osaiche Mensa Bunsu, Slawusu, etc. While some of the issues making up the dossiers are said to be new, the Herald learned that others are already existing issues which they failed to properly respond to, or the presidency helped them to cover up during their first term in office by simply clearing them. Indeed, some NPP members feel that the president has set some of the ministers up to be rejected. Insiders tell the Herald that many members of the NPP have been left wondering why President Akufo-Addo is risking a scenario where some of his appointees will embarrassingly be rejected by Parliament as a result of the many scandals hanging around their necks. First on the list is Keno Foriata, being retained as finance minister. He's expected to have the toughest vetting, as there's direct evidence linking him to several conflict of interest situations in many loans and bonds contracted in the last 4 years.
It's going to be very interesting.
Very,
we'll keep an eye on this.
Yeah.
I wanted to give you a quick story on the jabs. So this is from South Africa, and the story is the Mail and Guardian. It says Egypt Seychelles get their first jabs, and the story says Seychelles President Wavel Ramkalawan has become Africa's first head of state to receive the Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccine. He rolled up his sleeve for the injection in front of the local press last week, kicking off a national immunization campaign that was initially aimed at healthcare workers. The move comes after the UAE donated 50,000 doses of a vaccine developed by Chinese manufacturer Sinopharm. The UAE has been an early adopter of the Sinopharm jab alongside China, Serbia, and Egypt. And then we are told then the details about the different vaccines. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are about 95% effective, preventing COVID disease. Research published in the Lancet shows that the AstraZeneca jab was between 62 and 90% effective. Seychelles is also expecting to receive 100,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Question: where is Ghana? How many are we waiting for? Where is it coming from?
According to Dr. Okoboy, health workers, security personnel, teachers, transport operators, etc., will receive the first batch of COVID-19 vaccines.
Oh, nice.
The former Deputy Minister for Health, this is in the Herald, by the way, he says the first set of persons to receive the vaccines procured by the government will include those I mentioned previously. His revelation follows an announcement by President Akufo-Addo in his update on COVID-19, that was last week, that Ghana is in the pipeline of receiving the vaccines, and details of the access and rollout plan will be announced very soon. He spoke to Newsfile host Samson Ayini on Saturday.
Okay.
He indicated, again, health workers are high on the list because of their interaction with citizens and security personnel, the elderly who can prove underlying conditions like heart disease, etc. According to him, the vaccines procured from the COVAX facility are limited to 20% of the country's total population, and they should be here by the end of the first quarter.
Anyway, thank you, Kofui. Thank you, Nathan. That was the
Bernardino.
newspaper review. Coming up next is the Citi Business News. Stay with us.
This is the Citi Breakfast Show, the city's biggest conversation.